this parsha, which we're going to read this week on the Shabbos, is perhaps one of the parshas of the Torah that has the most mitzvahs, of the Torah mitzvahs. Everybody knows that there are 613 mitzvahs. This parsha alone has 53 of those. Now there are 54 parshas in the Torah. If you divide them, the 613 by any math majors here? Nobody. Oh, good. So 613 divided by 54.
This is the high school dropout program.
Gives you about 12, right? 12. There should be like 12, an average of 12 mitzvahs. So this one is like, there's a lot. So there are a lot of mitzvahs. I can't do all of them. But I do want to talk about something that perhaps we could relate to, things that happen all the time. You have someone else's property in your possession and you didn't steal it. Okay, you had permission. You have it in your possession. There are 4 ways, basically, that you could get this property in your possession legally and halachically. One is someone asks you to do a favor. Could you watch my thing for me? Right? So now you have his object in your possession. You're watching it for him. Okay. A second way is a little bit more enterprising. He says, could you watch this for me? Say, okay, but you have to pay me to watch it. So that's another way that you'll have it. You're now being paid to watch him. You call it paid guard. Another way to do it is that you could borrow it. Can I borrow your object? Now you have someone else's object that you have in your possession, right? And a fourth way is that you could rent it. You could rent someone's property. It's still his, but you have it in your possession. Now, if something happens to that property when it's in your possession, what is your legal obligation according to Torah? That's the question that we're going to deal with. What does the Torah say about property that's in your possession and something happened to it? It got lost, damaged, a lightning bolt came out of the sky and destroyed it. How responsible are you for what kinds of things? Okay? On page 429, if you see there's verse number 9, there's a little 9 there. If a man shall give his fellow a donkey or an ox or a sheep or any animal to safeguard, and it died or was broken or was looted without an eyewitness, an oath of Hashem shall be between them that he did not lay his hand upon the property of his fellow. The owner shall accept it, and he shall not pay. So if someone gave his friend an object to watch, an animal or any kind of object to watch, and he's guarding it, and one of these things happened to it, then the person who's watching it, who's doing him a favor, says, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't take it, and I didn't do anything that was negligent. You know, it was stolen. Somebody broke into my house and stole it. Or even if it was lost in a non-negligent way. So I don't want to pay you. I was doing you a favor. So the Torah says what you have to do, what that person, the guard, has to do is, well, he has to take an oath. He has to swear that he did not steal it. He didn't put it somewhere else. He said it's missing. I don't know what happened to it. He didn't do anything. I didn't do anything that was irresponsible, and it broke, or something that was stolen. You asked me to watch it for free. So therefore, all I have to do, says the Torah, is I have to swear to you that I didn't steal it. I didn't take it. I'm not hiding it somewhere. What I'm telling you is the truth. And then you don't pay. Okay? Then the Torah goes on to give a second case. Now that is a case of a guard who was asked to do a favor. He's called a shomer chinam, a free guard. Someone wanted, a friend asked you to do a favor. Like, what do? You didn't do anything irresponsible, and so that's what you have to do. If he wants you to, you have to take an oath. You have to swear. Take an oath means you do it with Hashem's name. It's not such a simple thing. People were terrified to take a false oath, a very serious punishment. Take a false oath with God's name. Now, the next case here is if somebody was asked to watch something and he was paid to do it. If it shall be stolen from him, then he has to pay the owners. If it shall be torn to death, one of the animals was attacked by a lion, he shall produce a witness. Right? For a torn animal, he doesn't have to pay. So, if you get paid to watch something, then if it becomes stolen or lost, you lose it even like you're watching something, it's in a sack and you're carrying it on your back or something, and the sack that you had tore and it fell out. So you weren't like really negligent to that degree, but you should have been more careful. Or if this object, instead of being guarded properly, it was stolen from you. Stolen means that someone snuck into your house at night or during the day and took it without you seeing them. It's not talking about someone that confronted you with an armed robber who held a gun to you and said, hand it over. In such a case, you would not be responsible. But if it was in a place in your house and it was stolen, then you would be responsible to pay him. However, if you claimed that, the lion came and ate it, or some other lightning bolt came out of the sky and zapped it, then you don't have to pay, but you have to take an oath. You have to swear to him that that's what happened and that you didn't take it, and that's really what happened, and you weren't negligent. If you borrow something, then even if something happens beyond your control, like the lion came and ate it, you have to pay him. There's an exception. If you hired him or you asked him to work for you, any kind of work, then you don't have to pay him. Then you're like a shomer chinam, you're like the first case, and you don't have to pay him, you just have to take an oath. But otherwise, if you're just borrowing something, if you borrow an object from someone, the Torah says you're responsible for it, totally responsible, and if something happens to it, you have to make restitution.
But in an extraordinary case, he can make an oath and he wouldn't have to be liable for paying it back?
No, he would. If you borrow, even in an extraordinary case, so something that was beyond your control, like armed robbers, you have to pay.
So what about the case with, like, say, lightning or...
You have to pay.
You have to pay.
Mm-hmm. Right. Unless you hired him, the owner of the object, to work, do something for you, or you asked him, even you didn't have to pay him, but you asked him to work with you, work for you, not even when you're using his animal. You know, it could be something else, any kind of work. You say you're chayav. The last case that the Torah says is if the animal was hired, if somebody hired it, which is the fourth case, you're called a renter. Okay, a socher, called a renter. You rent something, so there the Torah is not clear what happens. All it says is if he was a renter and it came in return for his rental. It ends. It doesn't say what level of responsibility you are. So it happens to be that there is a difference of opinion among the rabbis, the Tanoim, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, and whether you're considered what's called a shomer socher, a paid guard, or you are a shomer chinam. We decided halacha is that you're like a shomer socher. So now, here are the four cases. Let's see if we can figure out a criteria of why the Torah said this. Why the Torah make this distinction in each one of these cases, okay? Which I'm gonna throw out to the floor to see if you can come up with some ideas about this. The Torah says, if you're a shomer chinam, a free guard, someone asks you to do a favor, then if something happened to it, or if it was stolen even from your house, you don't have to pay anything. All you do is take an oath. If he doesn't trust you, you take an oath that you didn't steal it. If you are getting paid, you're a guard, you're getting paid to watch it, so then if it gets stolen or it's lost in a non-negligent way, so then you have to pay. And you can't get off with an oath. But if something that happens called an onus, something like a lightning bolt or a lion comes or armed robbers come and they take it away from you, then you just take the oath, that's what happened, and you don't have to pay. If you are a renter, you have the same responsibility as a paid guard. You don't have to pay only if something an onus happened, something like a lightning bolt or lion or armed robbers, okay? But if you lost it and you were renting it and it got lost, then you have to pay. And finally, a borrower, if you borrow something, you're responsible for anything that happens to it, practically. Anything that happens to it, you are responsible, even for onus, even things that onus means beyond your control. There was no way you can control the situation. So now, let's see if we can come up with a criteria. Why is it that a shomer chinam, someone who is watching something for free, has the least amount of responsibility? The one who borrows it has the most responsibility. A paid guard or a renter is somewhere in between. Why did the Torah make this distinction? What was it based upon?
Ownership?
Well, he owns it. In all cases, someone else owns it. You're the guard.
Based on like who's actively claiming it in a way, like the person who's asking you to watch it is pushing it onto you, versus if you're borrowing it, you're taking it from his domain. I mean, it's still his, but
You could say no. You could say no. If he asks you to watch it, you could say no. You don't have to say yes. He's not like forcing you to take it, but you're on the right track. There's a difference, obviously, between asking him to borrow something and watching something for him. I'll give a hint.
You're getting a benefit out of whatever you're
That's
doing.
it. Okay. Now let's look at the four cases and see who gets the benefit. What's your name?
Bernie.
Hi, Bernie. That was very good. Okay, that's the key. Benefit. Let's look at the four cases now. The one who is borrowing it, who gets the benefit?
The borrower.
Right, the borrower. What about the owner of the object? What benefit does he get? He doesn't really get benefit. And we're not talking about spiritual benefit, that he did a mitzvah. He doesn't really get benefit.
Unless he's a renter.
What? No, but borrower. We're talking about borrower, right? So therefore, a borrower is the one who's getting the most benefit from it, right? Whereas the one who is lending it, the lender, is not really getting any benefit, no substantial benefit. He's not getting paid for it. It's so all the benefit comes to the borrower, and therefore the Torah says the borrower has the most responsibility, and that's why he's chayav, he's obligated, even in the unusual circumstances that happen. That when you borrow something, it's like it's yours for the moment. If something happens to it, you got the loss. Right? You got the loss, you have to pay the owner though. Okay? The extreme opposite is when somebody asks you to do a favor and says, could you please watch me? Watch this for me. Who's getting the benefit in such a case?
Person asking.
The owner, right? The owner is, you're doing him a favor. Right? You're doing him a favor. You get no benefit, you're just doing him a favor. Right? So therefore, your obligation, the Torah says, is the least. You have the least obligation because of the fact that you are getting the least obligation. So therefore, the person that is getting hardly, the guard who is not getting so much, in this case, I mean, other than the fact he's doing a mitzvah, but he has the least responsibility. Now, the two cases in between, if you are a paid guard, someone's paying you to watch his object, who gets the most benefit?
Paid guard. It's his job.
Yeah?
Someone's paying you to watch the object.
I mean, maybe it's both equal.
Right. Who,
Market,
what's your name?
Mike?
Mike. Yeah, exactly. You're both getting benefit, and therefore the obligation that you have is the intermediate benefit, which is, as long as you have to not be negligent. However, you do have to, because you're getting paid, you have a responsibility to guard it well, and therefore, if it becomes stolen when it's under your guardianship, so then you're responsible, you have to pay. Okay? But if something unusual happens, like armed guards, armed robbers come, or someone who is, the lightning bolt comes out of the sky, that you're not obligated for because you're not in the same situation as a borrower. The same thing is true with a renter. When a rental situation, who gets the most benefit? Sequel, right? You both do. The renter gets the benefit of the use of the object, or the rentee gets the use of the object, and the renter gets paid for it. So therefore, that too is that's one of the things that the Torah has psukim which explain that.